Hey, how's everybody doing today? It's Wednesday, tax day, April 15th. Actually, for a lot of us, it's not tax day because they've extended the deadline due to the crisis. Originally I was planning on being in Orlando, and I was going to have a nice discussion with Andy Storch, who I've mentioned a couple times on this before. But with the way everything's worked out, I'm blessed to be at home, and I have a great guest for you here today. And so, with that, let's start the intro.
Hey there, it's time for Daily Live with Aaron Hunt. There has never been a time like we're experiencing right now. History is being written today. Join personal brand photographer and efficiency expert Aaron Hunt in a daily discussion focused on helping you adapt to our changing world by thinking small and dreaming big.
An intro on Instagram.
No worries.
Okay, so with that, so welcome. So today, my guest is Steven Nathenson, and I'm going to bring him up right now. Uh, so Steven, you've got a really interesting background. So I think we met in December or January. You started as an engineer. You were sort of in the nuclear power industry. You've got a couple patents to your name. Then you became an FBI special agent. And so that's just cool in its own right, right? And now you do a lot of coaching for people. So I know you're an avid runner. I think you're a triathlete. So it's just like there's all these cool things that sort of to me just add up to like, man, you know how to be excellent in things. And so I really appreciate you being here and just thanks for taking a little bit of time to be with us.
Yeah, absolutely, Aaron. Thank you so much. I'm really very happy to be here and very much appreciate the introduction and the ability to kind of chat with you today.
Yeah, great, great. Well, so a lot of what I've been talking about the last few weeks is about this idea of personal growth and accountability, and what are some of the things that we can do from a mindset perspective in the midst of this pandemic. And so, why don't you tell us a little bit about sort of like what you help people do, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's a great question. And you mentioned right now, currently what I do is I have my own company called Strive for More to do coaching and speaking really in the personal business development field. And when in doubt, regardless of what the initial context is, the number one thing that I always find that coaching really getting into is it's helping people build belief and confidence in themselves and then overcoming negativity, whether that's a limiting belief or whether it's negativity that we get from other people. And to your point, I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of applicability there here with what we're facing as a country now today.
Yeah, and it's like so. Let's just jump into like what's one of the key things that you think people need to do right now to overcome some of the things that they're hearing out in the world.
Yeah, it's a great question. And honestly, I think the very first thing in all of this is it's just acknowledging that, you know what, it's okay. It's okay to be worried. It's okay to have some stress associated with this. And it's okay the way that we're all feeling about this because this is a very real thing that we're all facing. It is a big challenge for us. And there are legitimate concerns for our health, our safety, that same thing for our loved ones, our job security, our financial security, right? There's a lot of things right now that are really impacting us all. And it's okay. It's okay to feel the way that we're feeling about that. And I really think that's kind of one of the fundamental things is just acknowledging that, you know what, it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to be worried. It's okay to have these, what we call negative, or what I like to really call non-serving thoughts and feelings come out for us. And that's kind of the first thing to your point that I would point out that it's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I don't think we'd be human if we didn't have
Right.
those feelings, and you do have to acknowledge them at times just to be
Yeah.
able to do something about them, right? And but I love that phrase that you just used. You called them non-serving emotions or non-serving feelings, and why don't you dig into that a little bit more?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, for me, what I mean by non-serving is it flips the script a little bit because when we think about negatives, we think about positives. There's this inherent connotation with those of what we should have done with something that's positive, what we shouldn't do with something that's negative, and we have these inherent reactions because of what those words mean to us. And if we change the phrasing just a little bit of what serves me and what doesn't serve me, it kind of alleviates that natural tension and stress that comes with, oh, this was something that was very negative and it shouldn't have happened. And now I feel down even more because I did do this and I feel like it's negative or it shouldn't happen. If we allow kind of that change through the natural wording of serving and non-serving, we shift that perspective and we can alleviate like a compounding effect of tension and stress that can build up with negative or positive.
Yeah, that's a great point. I talked about that a couple of times over the last week, where when you start focusing on the negative, then
Yeah.
you start seeing more negative, or if you start focusing on the positive, you start seeing more positive. And I think it becomes a big challenge for us to see that balance and be able to understand. And again, that term of it's it's not a helpful thing to do versus saying, well, it's negative. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you've been doing right now to try to help people through this?
Yeah. Great question. And in line with this conversation, the other parts of it is to your point, giving ourselves permission to be human, to feel the way that we're feeling, to acknowledge that it's there, and then that we're not alone. We don't have to face this challenge alone. Literally everyone in the world is facing the same crisis, the same challenges. And we can draw strength from that. We can see that there is a way forward. We've seen other countries in the way that they've handled it and know that we are going to get through this. And at a fundamental level, that helps create this knowledge that we're not alone, this hope that there is a way forward, and the fact that there is a way forward, and we can support each other on doing it. So, to maybe answer your question a little bit more pointedly, what I've been doing with folks is really kind of that first step in that process of, now that we've given ourselves permission to be where we are, we can then embrace it and embrace the fact that we can actually embody what serves us, the feelings, the thoughts, the behaviors that are going to help us get through this, knowing that we will get through this. And what small steps do we really take right now to kind of build that confidence and that momentum to bring about what it is that we want from us today and for tomorrow.
That's a just when you said that, it hit home that this might be one of the few times that ever in human history that simultaneously all of us are going through the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? Literally, just about every country on the planet has had some sort of impact from this, and one of the miracles that we have is that we have this technology to still be able to connect and learn from people all over the world, and it allows us to leverage some of those things. And again, to the other point that you made, we're able to learn from the things that people did in other countries. If you look back to the idea of people wearing masks, so back in February in America, a lot of people are saying, oh, it doesn't matter, it doesn't make a difference, right? But what they started looking at is, well, what are the countries that were able to stem the tide faster? What were some of the key things that they did? One of the things that they did was they had people wear masks, and it's not to prevent you from getting sick, it's to prevent you from spreading it to other people if you do have it, because the incubation period for this is so long. So it's one of those small little things that, when you mention that, I'm like, wow, that's actually pretty powerful that we have that resource to be able to use.
Yeah. Yeah. And, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and you're absolutely right that there's something that's so small can be so powerful and significant, because often in times like this, we can feel like maybe there's everything that's not in our control. Things are kind of spiraling. I don't have control over what's happening. And in those times, it is actually helpful to think about, well, what is in my control?
Right.
What can I control? Right. I can wear a mask. If that's going to help me feel safe and protected, I can make that choice.
Yeah.
I can choose how I go out, who I socialize with, the distancing that I do, how often maybe do I even go out? Am I comfortable going out a walk? What can I control? My thoughts, my feelings, my behaviors. And to that point, those small things and talk about what is in our control can really create that powerful, long-lasting effect.
Yeah, I love some of the points that you're bringing up, and I've mentioned it before. Seishu, one of my photographer friends, he said, "Hey, do you script these things?" And I don't script my daily lives, and we don't script these conversations either. So it's interesting that you're hitting on a few of the things that we've talked about over the last few days, and the idea of like, what is it that you can control, right? And because that gives you so much more power and so much more focus on staying focused on some positive things that do serve you, right? And
Yeah.
that you can make that traction forward. And you know, it just, there are things that we can do. We do have choices in this. And even if we're doing something that maybe it's not 100%, you know, I'm sure there are experts who still don't agree on the wearing the masks, right? But for many people, that makes them feel a lot better. And that's an important part of this is, you know, taking care of your feelings and taking care of your emotions and understanding, you know, how can you keep those in a positive mindset?
Yeah. And that, that brings out a actual phenomenal point, because not to get too much into the science behind it, but when you talk about focusing on what it is that I want, my desires, my outcomes, what I want to achieve, it is so much more powerful than the problems, the hurdles, the obstacles, the challenges that I face, because focusing on that more serving side of it does keep us in a physiological and psychological state through the activation of one of our nervous systems versus the opposite one that maybe releases cortisol and things associated with stress when we focus on the challenges or the problems. So there is some actual behavioral science and real science behind that focus and how it does promote and help us move forward. So I really commend you. I think that was a great point to bring out on your part.
Well, you know, it's when you mention it, the way you put it, what I hear is like from the golf course, right? So as a golfer, you know, you're taught not to focus on the hazard, not to focus on the things that can go wrong, but to visualize, you know, what a shot should look like. So what are you trying to do? And because, you know, if you visualize on the negative things that can go wrong, it takes over some of and it's like your mind almost does it, you know? And so I think, you know, it aligns with personal branding as well. You know, one of the things that I talk about is, you know, you need to focus on how you want to be perceived. And if you run a business, what do you want clients to think about you? Not necessarily 100% what do they say now. When we're creating those visual images, what is it that you want them to feel? What do you want them to say about your organization? And I think it ties in exactly to what you're talking about as well. You know, we have to think about what's the positive side of this and how do we want to end up, and then what are the steps we can take to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing about this is it's really tried and true, right? You brought up golf, which is a great point of this. If you look at Olympic athletes, professional athletes, what is one of the most common things you hear from them? And it's visualization, right?
Yeah.
Bobsledding. I can't always maybe get onto that course, but I can visualize how am I going to react and go through those turns. And to your point, right, there is that connection right between the mind and the body that helps with that. So it's a really tried and true tested to point too that you can see in a lot of aspects of life that you just brought up.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so, you know, we've been talking now for probably 15 minutes, and you know, what are some of the things that I haven't asked you about that you really think would help, you know, people to think about right now in these times?
Yeah, great question. One of the things, honestly, maybe in addition to what we talked about, is time itself, because we have so much at our fingertips. Like you said, we're so connected. We've got on demand. We've got the ability to do this right from the safety of our homes. But we are so accustomed now to seeing everything be really instantaneous and get that instantaneous gratification that we kind of naturally expect that for us when we change too as human beings. And that's a key point, is we don't shift and change overnight as human beings. And there are certain things that if maybe we've had this a certain way for 30 years and we've been doing it that way for 30 years, it's not going to happen overnight. And allowing us the permission to give ourselves the time to change, to adjust to the circumstances, I think is another key point, perhaps, to bring out that it's okay. It's okay to naturally take the time we need to build into what we want to achieve and the changes we're seeking for ourselves.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point, because, you know, some of us, there are things that we've done the same way for, you know, I'll use me as an example. I've been married 28 years. There are certain brands, there are certain things that we've done probably for most of that 28 years, and those have been challenged right now.
Yeah.
You know, you can't necessarily get you know, the exact eggs that you want, or, you know, we've actually struggled getting milk here lately. It just, And that's sort of interesting because I hear about some of the challenges the dairy farmers are having with inventory going bad, but yet it doesn't seem to be on the shelves.
Yeah.
So it's the but it takes time to make those adjustments, and we all move at different speeds. And I had mentioned a week or two ago that we're all at different seasons of our lives as well, and so the way we process these challenges are going to be different. Some of us are going to jump in and say, wow, this is great, I have the time to do these things. And other people are going to be, oh my gosh, my world has completely changed, and that's
Yeah.
that's painful, right? And you need time to sort of process through that, but then find positive things to focus on so that you can do things that serve you better, right?
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
so your organization, your company, Strive for More. I know you work with individuals, but you also work with teams. You work with companies as well, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some of your? I mean, do you have any stories? Without sharing like the names, like what are some of the transformation stories that you might want to share to sort of give people a little bit of inspiration for right now?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I'll actually draw upon what I've seen kind of across the board here in the entirety of people that I work with personally, in the organizations, in government, in the private sectors. And I think one of the greatest things that I've seen throughout this too is really honing in and making sure we maintain this human connection. These questions from people who are in teams that are internal, then these teams that are sales focused and trying to maintain that kind of normalcy in the business. What have we really been able to do? And the greatest thing is this question of, well, how can we actually connect and remain cohesive, engaged together? And it's been that story of, I don't know how to work remotely and be separate, or even how to reach out and connect with my customers, to, we have this technology. It doesn't have to be about work, because the best conversations naturally are organic and they're not necessarily work related. So can we set up virtual happy hours? Can we set up virtual lunches? Or maybe every day there's a meeting that's set up that it's maybe close to the end of the day, but the rule is we talk about nothing work related except for the last 5 minutes, and we just kind of regain this connection. And people are actually learning more about their coworkers now than they knew before, because they may queue off and say, oh, Aaron, there's a picture behind you. I'm really curious, what's that about? Or maybe my dog or my kid runs in the background.
Right.
So I think those are some of the greatest success stories that I've seen, is really just getting back to building those relationships all across the board.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, and I've heard a little bit about some of the the virtual happy hours and stuff like that, and I think they're beneficial, but now I'm starting to see these get to a larger level. Right, there was a lady last night who she was having like a women's event that was basically a virtual wine dinner that they were having, and she had said, "Man, this was absolutely amazing," and they a lot of them sounded like they almost enjoyed it more than the live events that they had before. So
Yeah.
so any final things you want to share? I try to try to hold to be respect your time basically. So what's the maybe the last parting information you want to share with us?
Yeah, a great question. The one thing that I'll say is, and you brought up earlier, I am a former FBI agent, and one of the things for me that honestly is hard at this point is I'm no longer on the front lines. I'm not able to combat this right now in perhaps a way that I would be able to, or how people in the medical field are. And so the one thing I would say is, if you have anyone, family, friends, or people honestly, who are in the front lines, to reach out to support them, because they do need masks, they do need equipment, they need a lot of love, because there's a lot of stress right now for them,
Yeah.
and they're doing an incredible job for all of us, in service of us. So I think maybe probably that's kind of the parting thing, is just kind of spreading the joy and the support, if you can, especially with those folks who really are putting their lives at risk to help us today.
Yeah. And to your earlier point, you can do that by just sending somebody a quick message. Do a video message, do even if it's just a text, but just tell them thank you, and tell them how much that they mean to you, and what they're doing means to you. I think that's an amazing point. And it's actually, some of the people that I work with in healthcare, because of the way things are happening, some areas of the country, the work's actually really slow for healthcare workers, and they're not working, and it's just as frustrating for them as it probably is for the people who are working 7/12s, because they're on the edge of being overrun. So it is very difficult for a lot of healthcare workers and a lot of people on the front line, firemen, policemen, all of those kinds of different workers, and even the idea of a little bit of gratitude goes a long way. So I've been using Instacart for a lot of my meal deliveries. The first thing I do when they start shopping my order is I thank them, right? Say, thank you for doing this, because quite frankly, they're on the front lines right now as well. So,
yeah, great point. Great point, Aaron.
So, hey, I appreciate you being here. And I think you shared some great information. I look forward to seeing you again in person sometime soon.
Yes, me too.
But, it's the last, I don't even think any of the events right now are scheduled, but we typically try to run into each other once a month at the PBX events, and those haven't been working out. So I thank you for the coaching that you're offering people. I really do think that people are going to need this more and more right now, but also as they come out of this, and how do they pivot, and how do they figure out how to grow maybe in a different way than what they've done in the past. So I appreciate everything that you've done, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. So thankful for you reaching out and for having this conversation with me today.
No
so
problem.
Thank you very much.
No problem. And like I said, we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. And with that, I want to wish you have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon, Steven.
Thank you, Aaron. You do the same.
Okay, thanks. And then for everybody else, that's the end of today's show, I guess we'll call it. And I will see you tomorrow with another topic on how you can improve your personal brand. So thanks. Have a great day and stay safe.